80 years is a long time. It's a long time to live if you're a person. It's even longer if you're a company. The list of companies that have lasted as long or longer than our company, the Termo Company, is relatively short. Many are American institutions that have survived through both good and bad economic times. In the long haul, they showed the resiliency and tenacity to keep going, changing with the times, and making business happen every day. So it's no surprise that Termo has been around for 80 years. The years haven't always been easy, but with our adventurous, can-do, pioneering spirit, they have indeed been rewarding. Our story starts with a family, more specifically, an entrepreneur, E.E. Combs, who put his home on the line to start a company. 5 years after oil is discovered on Signal Hill in 1921, Mr. Combs mortgages his house to drill his first well on Signal Hill. The year was 1926. You could say Mr. Combs had no problem committing to a venture. 2 years later, fire broke out at the Hope Well in Long Beach. The damage is so devastating that Mr. Combs is forced to take on partners. His search begins immediately. 2 years after discovering oil at the Fox Well in East Texas in 1931, E.E. Combs would formalize his working partnership with Roscoe Oakes, a retired Union Carbide executive who provided capital for their new venture. They would call it the Termo Company, which is from the first initials of their names and their wives, Thelma, Ernest, Roscoe, Margaret Oakes.
When my grandfather was restarting the oil business for the second or third time, he was out of money, and he'd found this property in Huntington Beach where he wanted to drill some wells. And through a mutual friend, was introduced to a man named Roscoe Oakes, who was a retired Union Carbide senior vice president. And Mr. Oakes wanted to dabble in the oil business. He was a tremendous industrialist, art collector, lived in San Francisco, a very, very wealthy man. And they came across, my grandfather came across this property owned by Getty, about right along the beachfront on Pacific Coast Highway in Huntington Beach.
In 1935, Termo began drilling and operating in the Huntington Beach field in Orange County. They would eventually produce from 16 wells in this field. In 1941, America enters World War II. Termo is recognized for producing oil supplies vital to the war effort. In 1953, tragedy strikes. E.E. Combs dies of cancer, and after a period of transition, Friend Combs, E.E.'s son and Eldridge Combs' brother, becomes president. Their half-brother Ernie continues to stay involved as an investor in the Termo Company. Shortly thereafter, Eldridge Combs replaces Friend as president, ushering in a new vision for the company. Friend would continue to be active in Termo until his death in 1982. 9 years later, Termo discovers the Brentwood Field in Contra Costa County. At the time, the Brentwood Field is the northernmost oil field in California. This was a huge milestone for the company. In 1966, the third generation of Combs family involvement begins, with David Combs joining the company. He continues the tradition of growth by founding Termo of Texas to explore for oil and gas more aggressively.
So we came across an opportunity where a bank was selling a royalty package scattered around the United States of producing royalties, minerals, etc. And so that was when I formed Termo of Texas to buy that, and I had to guarantee a $100,000 bank line, and that was literally the whole purchase price of the royalty package. And obviously my net worth was not $100,000, but I was willing to take that risk, the risk of losing our home, and with the family support, and because I was so confident this was a good acquisition and I could use this as a springboard to build a new company in effect and not compete with the Termo Company.
1970 sees continued success for Termo of Texas as Schrack No. 1 well in Kimball County, Nebraska comes online at 200 barrels a day. The production would last 2 years at that rate. In 1981, David Combs becomes president of Termo. 6 years later, he would merge Termo and Termo of Texas, kicking off a new wave of growth with acquisitions, purchases, and expansion projects in California, Colorado, Louisiana, Wyoming, North Dakota, Montana, Oklahoma, and Texas.
I really wanted to build actually a new company, if you will, from the old company, and did so by buying properties from the majors. This included Unocal, Chevron, Exxon, and Texaco. These were properties in both California and South Louisiana, and we worked hard to improve these properties.
In 2000, oil took a downward turn. David Combs continued the family tradition of committing to the business by pledging his home to secure a loan and keep the Termo Company going. E. Combs would have been proud. The gamble pays off, and in 2000, the company was reborn with a 3-year string of discoveries and projects in Wyoming. Termo's success continues through the next 10 years. Business is good, and it stays good.
At the present time, we're still on a growth basis or building block basis. It's become very, very hard to acquire oil and gas properties. So we've been focusing on two things: buying out existing outside partners in the properties that they help finance over the years. Some people are individual investors who have desired to exit. We've purchased them out of the properties, give us a larger share of the properties, and we're focusing heavily on exploration, on high impact plays, both as an operator and a non-operator in California, South Texas, South Louisiana, and to some degree in the Rockies. And as I mentioned earlier, we acquired royalty packages around the country, one of which has turned out to be in the famous Bakken Shale play in North Dakota. We have a significant position in that and are participating literally in 2 wells continuously up there as a non-operator, but as an owner. And we're in the hot plays in the country today are the Bakken Shale, we're involved in that. Granite Waste in Oklahoma, we're involved in that. The Marcellus in Pennsylvania, we're involved in that. And the Eagle Ford in South Texas, we're involved in that. And so it was vision and a good measure of luck that got us into those prospects.
Today, in 2013, Termo employs 45 people, including field operators, petroleum engineers, geologists, and administrative staff. Termo believes in the new generation of oil companies who understand the role they play in the world. They know that business is not just about pulling oil from the ground. It's about doing it responsibly. Business is about people and communities, about caring for the environment and the world we share. It's about doing the right thing.
I've always believed when we make a location, drill a well, make it as small as possible. So literally we have the smallest footprint in the environment, if you will, or destroying as little habitat as possible. And then where necessary, replant, reseed to bring this back to the pre-existing state as close as we can. I mean, we drilled wells in Colorado. When we were done, we actually took manure, plowed it into the ground to fertilize the properties so the grasses would come back sooner.
We've been working to improve our impact on safety and the environment. We're also working to improve our industry's reputation by implementing the best management practices, even in places where the law doesn't require it, just because it's the right thing to do. At Termo, we're doing our part to wean the United States off oil imports. We're working towards a future where we envision a United States that no longer imports its oil. We believe in our employees, our investors, our partners, and our country to make that happen. It's amazing how far we've come in 80 years. And we look forward to our continued journey over the next 80 years.